You know that moment, right? It's mid-December. You're in a grocery store, reaching for like a carton of eggnog or something, and suddenly you hear it.
Subscribe! Oh, the sleigh bells.
Yes, the gentle jingle of sleigh bells. And in an instant, you either smile or you dive behind a display of cranberry sauce in sheer panic.
Because you were playing Whamageddon.
Exactly.
It's the ultimate social media survival game, right? The only rule is to go as long as you possibly can through the festive period without hearing Last Christmas, which is honestly basically inescapable.
It really is. I mean, trying to avoid that song in December is like trying to avoid mentions of eggs at Easter. It's just everywhere.
Oh, for sure.
But, whether George Michael as that inescapable festive fixture or like the 80s icon dancing in short shorts or just a tabloid headline, you are about to see a completely different side of the artist today.
Yeah, a really fascinating side.
Right. So today we're taking a deep dive into the completely unacknowledged, agonizingly precise musical genius of George Michael.
And we are pulling from some amazing excerpts of Satnam Sanghera's book, Tonight the Music Seems So Loud.
Great book.
It is. And the central thesis here is that George Michael's sheer omnipresence in our culture has actually kind of blinded us to his immense talent. Like, we just take him for granted because he's always just there.
Okay, let's unpack this because, honestly, there is no better example of his omnipresence than Last Christmas. I mean, we all know the song, but the actual history behind it is just staggering.
Staggering is the right word. Sanghera actually describes this track as the pop equivalent of Lionel Messi's football career.
Wow, really?
Yeah, just when it comes to pure statistical dominance. The chart history is a total anomaly in the music industry. I mean, it took 39 years for Last Christmas to finally hit #1 in the UK charts.
39 years? That's wild.
Right. It eventually got there on New Year's Day, 2021. And then it went on to break records by holding the coveted Christmas #1 spot in consecutive years, 2023 and 2024.
But, when something is that deeply embedded in the culture, it almost becomes a punchline.
Oh, definitely. Just look at the whole Whamageddon phenomenon we mentioned. In December 2023, there was this DJ at a Northampton Town football stadium.
Oh, I heard about this.
Yeah. He accidentally played the song over the speakers and knocked 7,000 people out of the game in a single moment.
That is just hilarious. Didn't he have to apologize or something?
He did. He had to issue a formal public apology.
That perfectly illustrates how we view the song, though. We view it as this cultural meme. I mean, even the music video was famous for its excess, right?
Oh, the ski resort video.
Yeah, it was shot at a ski resort, and the making of it was such a notoriously boozy affair that Andrew Ridgeley, his bandmate in Wham, was literally too drunk to even stand up for the final scenes.
That's classic 80s pop excess right there.
Exactly. But that chaotic, fun image completely masks the intense, isolated reality of how the music itself was engineered.
And the contrast between that public perception and the actual studio reality is just vast. You picture a massive production suite, right? A team of seasoned writers, a huge budget.
Right, like an army of pop producers.
Exactly. But George Michael wrote Last Christmas in about an hour.
An hour?
Yeah, just sitting in his childhood bedroom in February of 1984. While he was upstairs meticulously constructing what would become, one of the most successful songs in human history, Andrew Ridgeley was downstairs watching the football highlights show, Match of the Day, on television.
That is insane. And when they took it to the studio, didn't George play every single instrument on the track himself?
He did everything.
He was programming the drum machines, playing the synthesizers. I read that the studio engineer offered to help out by just shaking the sleigh bells, and George just laughed him off. He insisted on physically doing every single part.
And what's fascinating here is the psychological effect of that isolation. By playing everything himself, he had total, absolute control over the emotional resonance.
Right.
He perfectly balanced this tremendously cheerful, upbeat holiday melody with deeply melancholic lyrics about heartbreak. I mean, the sleigh bells are festive, but the synthesizer pads beneath them are really cold and isolating.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. But because it is so incredibly catchy, and because he was packaged as this glossy teen idol, his critical reception really suffered.
Oh, massively. Music historians and even just the algorithms of streaming platforms today, they often group him with middle-of-the-road acts. Think Simply Red or Chris Rea. They entirely miss the fact that his talent spanned pop, R&B, funk, and soul.
Hold on. I have to challenge this whole middle-of-the-road label.
Go for it.
If an artist creates something that bridges pop, R&B, and soul so seamlessly that literally everyone from like a grandmother to a club DJ loves it, why do critics penalize them for that? I mean, isn't making something universally appealing the absolute hardest thing to achieve in music?
It absolutely is.
Calling Last Christmas middle of the road is it's like looking at a piece of beautifully hand-carved mahogany furniture that became so perfectly ubiquitous that you just assume it's a cheap, mass-produced flat pack from IKEA simply because you see it everywhere.
That is a perfect way to put it. We constantly confuse accessibility with a lack of depth. Like, we assume if it's easy to listen to, it must have been easy to make.
Right.
And if we want to talk about profound musical depth masquerading as glossy pop perfection, the ultimate case study is Careless Whisper.
Oh, man. If writing Last Christmas in an hour shows his spontaneous pop instincts, the story of Careless Whisper reveals this meticulous, almost obsessive level of craftsmanship.
Completely. Because when you hear Careless Whisper, you probably think of smooth jazz, right? Adult contemporary romance, maybe sophisticated seduction in a penthouse suite.
Definitely. Very mature vibes.
But George Michael was just 17 years old when he wrote it.
17? That's just
Crazy, right? And the location wasn't some luxury penthouse. That iconic saxophone melody, the one everyone recognizes in like 3 notes, came to him while he was riding a public bus. He was literally physically handing his fare to the bus conductor.
He just got this riff in his head, right? Like, and he didn't even rush to a piano or anything.
No, he didn't.
He just kept composing the entire arrangement in his head over the next 3 months while commuting to work. And honestly, his job at the time grounds this story in such unglamorous reality.
Oh, the restaurant job. Yeah, his father, Jack Panos, was super frustrated that his son wasn't going to university, so he forced him to get a quote-unquote real job.
Naturally.
So George ended up working as a DJ at this dance and dinner venue called the Bel Air Restaurant in Northwood. And Sanghera actually visited the location for the book. He noted that this site of major pop music history is now just a used car sales office called Mondial Cars.
Just imagine the guy who would go on to sell 120 million albums stationed behind a pillar at a local restaurant, just awkwardly leaning to a microphone to say, "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed your meal."
He actually called it the most embarrassing thing he ever did.
I bet. He was traveling between that restaurant job and like an usher gig at a local cinema when he crafted a global masterpiece. And the inspiration, it was just messy suburban teenage drama.
Oh, yeah. The grand tragedy of Careless Whisper is actually about teenage two-timing.
Wow.
He was vaguely seeing this girl named Helen from his A-level art class, the advanced exams British students take.
Right.
But at the same time, he started dating a girl named Jane, whom he met at a local ice rink. He was juggling them behind their backs. So the song is an exploration of the creeping guilt of that betrayal. That famous lyric about guilty feet have got no rhythm is quite literally about dancing with someone while knowing you've ruined the relationship.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. How does a 17-year-old boy, whose biggest life crisis is sneaking around between an art class and an ice rink, write a song with that much profound emotional weight?
Well, by tapping into the absolute unfiltered intensity of adolescent emotion, teenagers feel everything at 1,000%.
That's true.
Betrayal and guilt aren't nuanced when you're 17. They feel like the end of the world. And musically, he leaned right into that. He used minor chords that inherently build this sense of unresolved tension and sadness.
Yeah, it's so dramatic.
He wasn't writing about a bitter divorce or midlife crisis, but he accurately captured the primal feeling of having irreparably broken something you care about.
It's like a high school sophomore writing a profound, award-winning novel about a midlife crisis. It just shouldn't be possible.
Yeah.
And it contrasts so wildly with his later life. He eventually became this global gay icon, a massive figure in the LGBTQ plus community. Yet his defining, sweeping ballad was born from a heterosexual teenage love triangle.
It's a wild paradox. But, having that raw, precocious talent is one thing, but knowing how to execute it in the studio is a completely different skill set.
Totally.
And this is where we really see his unyielding, uncompromising vision emerge. When he finally got the budget to record Careless Whisper properly, he had such a specific sonic landscape in his head that he just refused to compromise, even if it meant alienating absolute industry royalty.
The story of the Jerry Wexler sessions is just mind-blowing.
It really is.
So Weems management wanted a massive hit, right? So they sent George to Muscle Shoals in Alabama to work with Jerry Wexler. This is the legendary producer who defined the sound of Aretha Franklin and Ray Charles.
They literally called him the man who invented rhythm and blues.
Exactly. So you have this teenage pop star stepping into the booth with a titan of 20th century music.
And Wexler produces the track using his incredible, seasoned session musicians. George Michael listens to the final mix and he just scraps it entirely. He throws it right in the bin.
Oh my God.
He later admitted he was so intimidated by Wexler that he had to get drunk just to sing the vocal takes. But when he heard the playback, he realized the track fundamentally missed the point of the song.
His engineer said the Wexler version sounded emotionally flat, describing it like a long ride in a lift. But why did it sound like elevator music?
Because Wexler produced it like a traditional, warm R&B track with a live rhythm section. But George Michael's original vision relied on the stiff, mechanical sound of a drum machine. He wanted that cold, isolating synthetic beat beneath the vocal. The traditional warmth of the Muscle Shoals musicians actually killed the lonely, melancholic tension of the song.
That's like hiring a classically trained Renaissance painter to do your portrait. But what you actually need is a stark, high contrast, black and white Polaroid. Like, the painting might be technically superior, but lacks the necessary grit.
Exactly.
So George fires the legend and produces the track himself. And that brings us to the agonizing saga of the saxophone solo.
Oh boy. The saxophone gauntlet. It wasn't just a lucky take in the studio. George Michael put the session musicians through a psychological nightmare. He auditioned 11 different saxophonists. 11. He even brought in the legendary British jazz saxophonist Courtney Pine.
And he micromanaged every single breath they took, right?
Yep.
Like, he would stop the mid-take and say, no, the note has to twitch upwards right there, not there, here, and not too much.
Yes. He wasn't just looking for someone to play the sheet music. He was looking for someone to replicate the exact micro-inflections he had been humming on that bus for 3 months.
Which is just wild. So who finally got it?
The job eventually fell to a session musician named Steve Gregory. But even when Gregory nailed the feeling, they ran into a mechanical issue. Gregory was playing a vintage 1954 Selmer tenor saxophone. To hit the highest note in the solo, he couldn't just press a standard key. He had to use what musicians call a fake fingering.
Wait, which means what exactly?
It basically means contorting your fingers across the keys in this awkward, non-standard combination to essentially force the instrument to squeak out a pitch it wasn't naturally built to play.
Oh, wow.
But doing that makes the note sound thin, strained, and a bit wobbly. It didn't have the smooth power George Michael wanted.
But Gregory actually comes up with a brilliant technical workaround, right?
He does. He asks the engineer to slow the analog tape down, which simultaneously drops the pitch of the backing track by a semitone.
Well, that's clever.
Yeah. This allowed Gregory to play the entire solo in a slightly lower key, where he had all the proper full-sounding notes naturally built into his horn. So they recorded his flawless take, and then they sped the tape back up to the original correct pitch.
But speeding up the tape doesn't just fix the pitch, it changes the entire texture of the instrument, right?
Precisely. When you speed analog tape up, you compress the sound waves. It makes the saxophone sound slightly tighter, slightly unnatural, and piercingly urgent.
I hear it now in my head.
It gives it that iconic, almost synthetic wail that cuts right through the mix. When George Michael walked into the control room and heard that sped-up playback, he pointed at Gregory and declared, "You are number 9.
Wait, number 9? I thought you said 11.
Yeah, he meant Gregory was the 9th saxophonist to attempt it in London, though he was technically the 11th if you count the scrapped Alabama sessions.
That is just incredible. And that obsessive control, it bled out of the recording booth and straight into his visual representation, too. I mean, the music video shoot for Careless Whisper in Miami is a legendary piece of industry lore.
Oh, it really is. They had a massive budget for that. Helicopters, speedboats, gorgeous locations. They shot for 2 long, incredibly humid days in the Florida heat.
And then what happened?
Well, as they are wrapping up, George reviews the footage and decides he fundamentally hates his hair.
His hair.
Yeah, the humidity had gotten to it.
Yeah.
He complained to his manager that it looked frizzy and poofy. He even told Neil Tennant from the Pet Shop Boys that he thought he looked like Shirley Bassey, the glamorous Welsh singer.
So what does he do? He shuts the entire production down.
Right.
He refuses to use the footage. He literally flies his sister out from London to Miami just to cut his hair and forces the crew to reshoot massive amounts of the video.
Costing an absolute fortune, by the way.
Right. It cost an additional £10,000, which was an astronomical sum for a music video overrun in 1984. And even after all that, He still hated the Miami footage so much that he hired a completely different director back in London to film him singing alone on a dark stage.
Just so he could intercut it and reduce the amount of Miami footage in the final edit.
It's like a first-time indie filmmaker looking at footage shot by Steven Spielberg and saying, no, the lighting is off, I'm going to reshoot it on my iPhone. The audacity is amazing.
It is. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this obsessive micromanagement wasn't just pure vanity, it was a fiercely protective mechanism for his art. By constantly tinkering with the audio mix and stripping away literal narrative from the music video, he left room for the audience's imagination.
Right, he intentionally left things blurry. I mean, people to this day argue over misheard lyrics in the track. Half the internet thinks he's singing Wasted Sense instead of Waste the Chance.
Exactly. And that ambiguity is exactly why the song survives today as a polysemic masterpiece.
Meaning it has multiple meanings depending on the context.
Exactly. It holds multiple, often contradictory meanings simultaneously depending on who is listening. It is sincere enough to be played at a romantic wedding, but it's self-aware enough to be used as an ironic punchline on TikTok.
Oh yeah, layered over videos of Mercedes G-Wagons spinning in the snow. Or like Bruce Lee fighting Chuck Norris.
Exactly. George Michael engineered a song that can mean genuine heartbreak or cheesy 80s nostalgia, adapting perfectly to whatever the culture needs it to be.
Which brings us to the core tension of his life. This unyielding CEO-level control over his art clashed spectacularly with a public life that was often chaotic, vulnerable, and deeply contradictory.
Completely.
And to understand that tension, Singhdera takes us back to his roots in the book.
Yeah, he visits this vegetarian Indian restaurant in Edgware called Little Resham. Decades ago, that exact building was Angus Pride and later Mr. Jack's, which was a restaurant owned and operated by George Michael's father, Jack Panos.
Right, his dad.
Jack was a hardworking Greek Cypriot immigrant who worked grueling, exhausting hours in the kitchen to build a foundation for his family in the UK.
And didn't George Michael even work there briefly as a teenager?
He did, messing up the drink orders, apparently. But his dad was so proud of him, he used to play George's early, unreleased demo tapes for the diners over the restaurant's speaker system.
That's so sweet. But that immigrant work ethic he absorbed from his father became the engine of his career, while also creating massive internal friction, right?
Oh, absolutely. George Michael became the ultimate visual symbol of 1980s Thatcherite excess, a cultural era defined by extreme wealth, materialism, designer clothes, and supermodels.
Right, the whole greed is good era.
Yeah, but simultaneously, he was quietly funding benefit gigs for striking coal miners and nurses working for the National Health Service.
The paradoxes are everywhere.
Yeah.
He was fiercely protective of his privacy, keeping his sexuality hidden from the public for over a decade while navigating that brutal tabloid culture of the 80s and 90s.
Right.
But then later in life, he would willingly overshare incredibly intimate, sometimes scandalous details about his private life with those exact same tabloids.
And, he bragged at 21 years old that he had achieved more than anyone else in the history of music at his age. Yet behind closed doors, he suffered from crippling imposter syndrome. He was constantly terrified he was going to be exposed as a fraud who just got lucky.
Wow.
He was the king of mainstream, easy-listening radio, but he pushed the envelope so hard that he regularly had music videos banned from television networks.
So what does this all mean? With over 120 million albums sold, why does the critical establishment still hesitate to put him in the same pantheon as Prince or David Bowie?
It's a great question.
Is it possible that his refusal to fit neatly into a single archetype is exactly why critics dismiss him? I mean, in pop music, critics really only know how to validate two types of artists.
Okay, what are they?
Well, they love the tortured bohemian who suffers for their raw, unpolished art. Or they love the manufactured pop puppet because it allows academics to write essays analyzing them as a tragic product of capitalism.
This raises an important question about how we assign value to pop culture. Because George Michael broke the rules by being both.
Exactly.
He was the manufactured, glossy pop idol, and he was the tortured, obsessive genius architect pulling the strings behind the curtain. He was the product, and he was the CEO of the factory.
Yeah.
And he had brilliant self-awareness about this. When introducing the record sleeve for Last Christmas on television, he literally told the viewers, "You've never seen us look so stupid in your life." He knew exactly how absurd the image was.
Yet, as Singhdera points out, universities aren't hosting academic Swiftposiums to deconstruct George Michael's lyrics the way they do for Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
The critical establishment just labels him middle of the road and moves on.
Which is a profound failure of critical analysis. His contradictions don't diminish his legacy. They literally are the legacy.
Right.
Just think about the technological and cultural tidal waves he successfully navigated. He stayed culturally dominant through the era of Top of the Pops and vinyl, the explosion of MTV, the golden age of CDs, the piracy panic of Napster, all the way into the modern era of Spotify streaming and algorithmic TikTok trends.
It's unparalleled, really.
And he navigated the shifting, often cruel public attitudes toward homosexuality with immense, stubborn dignity.
It's incredible to step back and look at the sheer scale of what he accomplished while making it look like an effortless party.
Yeah.
So, the next time you were in that grocery store and you hear the sleigh bells on Last Christmas, or you were scrolling on your phone and see a Careless Whisper meme, I want you to remember the reality behind the sound.
Absolutely.
Remember the 17-year-old kid riding on a bus, translating adolescent guilt into a timeless melody? Remember the relentless perfectionist who rejected legendary producers and micromanaged tape speeds to protect his vision? And remember the son of a Greek Cypriot immigrant who completely reshaped the architecture of global pop music.
George Michael was an undisputed master of image, from the leather jackets to the perfectly coiffed hair. But I think we have to ask ourselves something deeper. What if his greatest and most tragic illusion wasn't that perfectly crafted aesthetic? What if his ultimate illusion was the fact that he made agonizingly hard, perfectionist musical genius look so incredibly effortless that the world simply forgot to take him seriously?